To make a long story short, I ended up going to the World Taxidermy Championships in 1999 and winning not only world champion life-size mammal, but best of show out of all the world champions.
If you are the world champ, it's like any world title, you know, whether it's the world's best physicist or Miss America, you're the best.
The term I coined was Ken has magic in his hand.
So anyways, when I was in like grade 3 or 4 or something, I wrote a story about Bigfoot.
Talk about how, I mean, in the Q&A you mentioned you had this initial interest in taxidermy and you were really looking at trying to do a project and you knew Ken from, you know, circles and everything around that. Talk about a little bit about how you came about just beginning this process and then how it became all about the Sasquatch.
Well, you know, I had this interest in taxidermy and I used to be a photographer and I found myself, like everybody, you know, sitting in front of a computer all the time, and I was looking for something that was kind of tactile and old school and low tech that I could do that would still be creative, you know?
Yeah.
And I was drawn to taxidermy. I love the kind of marriage of art and science, and there's like a chemistry to it, which reminded me of the dark room, and it was just something new to learn. And I'd always kind of been interested in it. It's just kind of weird. People have dead animals in their homes, and so I like that aspect too. So I started, you know, I got some books from the library, and then I found this forum on a site called taxidermy.net, and it was this great database and of tutorials and information, and I found out all the best taxidermists in the world were on there, you know, helping beginners like me, but also sharing tips amongst themselves.
Nice.
And pretty quick, I started getting more interested in kind of following the lives of these people. They were really eccentric and really fascinating. I mean, I could, you know, there's a 1,000 documentaries there. Kind of narrowed it down to a few characters, and one of them was Ken. And when I called Ken to tell him that, you know, I was thinking about doing a project like this, he was very interested in being part of it. And then he told me he was going to make a Bigfoot, and I thought, there's the movie right there.
Nice. Did you ever have any apprehensions or anything, Ken, about being filmed for this process and going through this and all?
I'm not really big on apprehensions.
Nice.
No, you know, I kind of got what he wanted to do, and also I've been in documentaries and other things before.
Sure.
And I've also been in some where they tried to portray us in a way that we wouldn't want to be portrayed, and I'm ready for it, you know.
Nice.
But on even the slightest chance that somebody's going to do something that is beneficial, worthwhile, honest, for that matter.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth trying, and if anybody's going to step out there and do it, it's always pretty much going to be me. So.
Something that is very interesting about, you know, then taking on this project, you know that Ken Walker is the taxidermist, right? He's the star.
Yeah.
He's the big guy. So he's a perfectionist, and he's known for being very, very detailed. So you know that you're in the long haul, right?
Yeah.
That this is going to be more than a year project, right?
Yeah, you know, I didn't know how that was going to go. And I went up there, the first time I went up there was before he started the Bigfoot. And I thought, well, I'm going to get some footage of him, you know, working on other critters that he was getting ready to take to the World Championships. And just to kind of establish that this guy's legitimate. You know, it's not just he wants to make a Bigfoot. I mean, he's the best at what he does, and this is his specialty. And so I went up there, and that was pretty eye-opening to see how he works and to get the lay of the land in Canada. And then it wasn't long after that he calls and tells me, yeah, I sold my shop. I'm going to build a new one. It'll be up and running in a few months. I thought, no, it's not. So it took a little longer. I know how these things work, and it took a while. But we did get together a couple times in between then and when the new shop was built. But you know, Ken is a pretty much a one-man business. He's an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. He owns his own business, and when a few bears or a mountain goat or something comes in the door, he has to take that work, and he
Yeah.
can't just drop it all and do the Bigfoot, because he has all these other expenses, and he's got to keep the thing rolling. So, it wasn't always the smoothest thing. There were little hiccups along the way. I'd show up and we're gonna, carve the Bigfoot that day, but I got to mount this goat first.
Yeah, or else I can't pay the rent.
Yeah.
No, that's been a little bit of contention but that's how it is when
Yeah.
you're self-employed. And the other thing too, I had all people coming up to me saying, he's making a movie about you, what are you getting?
Yeah.
And I said, well, who the heck do I think I am? Which is about it, I said, look, if I do a good job in this movie and I come across good, I says, then there's something there.
Yeah.
I says, plus,
Well, it helps all of them, right?
yeah, I says we're all in this together. What we got to do is we're gonna do something of quality, and then we'll see where it takes us. So we all took our chances, things like that. And I think it came out amazingly well.
I would agree, and I would say that that's probably the one thing about documentaries that I really is always fascinating to me is that you always have this mindset that you're going to go in and do something, right? And then whether it's during the shooting, whether it's at the edit, whether it's something just twists and turns, which this film has in it, you change up and it evolves and it turns into something bigger than even you expected, or littler than you expected, and more narrow and focused.
Right.
And so I'm kind of, it's kind of interesting. It might have been a happy accident that you had all these delays, because then you can film them at the World Fair, and all those little vignettes that happen kind of add to the nuance of what he does.
I agree, and I think that's part of what attracts me to documentary filmmaking is you've got to be on your toes. You've got to be ready for what comes your way, and you have to see the things that are happening that some
Right.
people don't even see. They don't even realize they're there. So, I came from a film background, and we didn't just let the thing roll, because that's money just flying through the camera. So it took me a while on this project to learn. You just turn the camera on and you just let it go.
Nice.
And once I got the hang of that, which came pretty quick, I think it really helped. It kind of freed me up, and I was able to, sometimes run 2 cameras at once and really pay attention to what's going on, behind the scenes.
As an independent artist, as yourself, Ken, somebody who really works at their craft and hones their craft and does what they do, or does what they did, as we found out you're retiring. Congratulations, by the way.
Well, it's retiring from commercial taxidermy.
Okay.
The thing that interrupted everything we did is what I have an opportunity to pay my bills another way,
Yeah.
and also to evolve into something better.
Nice.
Yeah. So I call it a retirement, and that's for my clients. But for me, it's an amazing beginning.
So as an artist, did you ever, knowing that the camera was going to be on you, and knowing that it was really about this Bigfoot project, that was the whole emphasis of what you guys were trying to do, but then you had all these side projects. Did you ever feel like you were rushed a little bit? Did you ever feel or did you say, you know what, I'm going to take my time no matter what, because I'm an artist and this is what I do, and that's more important?
Well, to be totally honest, for especially some of the later part of the filming, and it's probably there's an underlying thing in my life. I didn't want anybody to talk to me. I was in a bad place. I didn't realize I was depressed. I'd been living in a room in my basement. I look at it now and I can tell I'm sick, and through this and everything that happened, it was like I was born again. I came back to what I used to be, and it was really hard sometimes to do the projects. I didn't even want to get out of bed in the morning sometimes.
Yeah.
So there was that, but I'm pretty good at faking it. So we got through it, and in hindsight, I think it worked out rather well. Even though I can see what was happening, a lot of people who are watching it can't.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. But yeah, there was a lot going on. And when I think about it, how I feel now as compared to how I was then, it's always a real transformation for me to watch. And I literally step out of myself to look back at this guy that I was.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's frightening.
Yeah. as a filmmaker, the panel that was just here talking about following your subject and being the ethics of behind it, and
Yeah.
you seeing that this is where Ken is in his life.
Yeah, I mean that hits close to home for every doc filmmaker, especially in a biographical doc. I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's you have these responsibilities, and you have to make these decisions that aren't always easy.
Yeah, and I would especially think that the third act of this film was kind of a struggle for you in deciding how much you were going to put in, where you were going to go with it. Was it going to dominate the film? Was it going, where?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well,
don't spoil it, but just talk.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. When it happened, I called my editor to tell him about it.
Yeah.
And my initial thoughts were exactly the way it ended up. And we went through a lot of different processes before we got there, though. We had some creative differences. But, I figured, it's a life-changing event. You can't really avoid, having it in there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also kind of a footnote, and it's not part of the main story. So it did become part of, a big part of the third act. And I really tried to just keep it as concise and succinct as possible to explain what really went on.
Sure.
And I feel fortunate that I was able to even to witness it. I mean, yeah, it's great that I caught it on camera, but
Right.
it was a fun thing just to witness, after spending so many years with Ken, and
Right.
seeing him go through this transformation and yeah, it was, it's a happy accident. And I have no idea how the movie would have ended up without it, but yeah,
It does kind of wrap it up a little bit. It does kind of give
Yeah.
you a way to
Yeah.
come down
Yeah.
off of what you're trying to do.
some people don't like it, some people
Yeah.
love it. It really resonates with
Everybody's
some
a
people.
critic, right?
Yeah, yeah.
For you, Ken, I'm kind of curious. I know that you're entrenched in this world for a very long time. You've been a part of the taxidermy community for decades, and I'm curious though. Was there anything that through the filmmaking process and being a part of this that you learned that you didn't know about your craft that you kind of ingested and took with you?
Well, if you're ever going to be good at anything, you will understand early on that you don't stop learning.
Yeah.
And every time you focus on something different, you learn something different. That's usually what I do. I'm not one of those people that'll sit down and try and take in as much knowledge at one time. I find a project and only then do I concentrate on it. I can't have too much in my head at one time. So through this process, I guess the biggest thing that I learned, and it was probably the best lesson that I learned, was that I can fail, and it's okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there is some setbacks and things.
Yeah, and life became a lot easier when I accepted failure, a lot easier, and I did learn that through this process. There's no two ways about it.
Interesting. Yeah. And taking this film and having the experience that you had, and I know you're into another project already. Talk about what are you going to take from this film that you're going to bring to the next film.
Well, the other film isn't necessarily a document. Well, it's not a documentary. It's a
narrative.
Yeah, it's an episodic TV series, so it's really in early stages of development. But it uses Sasquatch, Bigfoot, this icon of pop culture, to address these issues that are important to all of us, I think, and that
Nice.
ultimately is the vanishing wilderness and what we've done to the wilderness, and these are things that developed during the filming of Big Fur, because I
Right.
had never thought about Bigfoot before.
You touch upon it a little bit.
Yeah, I tried to keep that concise too, but ultimately, if the landscape becomes so tame that a Bigfoot couldn't possibly live there, we're in deep shit.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I'm also looking at some other doc projects that'll,
Nice.
probably, these things kind of develop slowly. But I did want to mention that, you talked about what Ken had learned, and for me, I went up to Canada. He had all these critters he was going to take to the World Championships the first time I went, and they didn't all get finished, and one didn't turn out like he wanted, and for all these kind of strategic reasons, he just brought the wallabies. And I'm all excited. I'm there filming the ceremony. It's like, well, Ken's going to win Best in World again because these are the best by far, you know.
Yeah.
Turns out if you do the judges like baby animals. But anyway, he got second place. And I thought, oh, Ken is going to be pissed. And it was very cool to see that he wasn't upset at all about it. He was
No.
He was just like, this is, second in the world is great.
Second in the world.
He was very happy. And it was that was a real eye-opening
Nice.
thing for me to witness during filming and getting to know Ken and understanding his character.
So there was no Ricky Bobby moment.
No. Well, and a lot of people have to realize I was up against the best taxidermists in the world.
Sure.
And especially some great up-and-comers. I lost world champion by half a point.
Wow.
Half a point.
Wow.
And because there's two judges and they basically take and combine the score. So two of the scores were the exact same and one was 1 point higher, so half a point.
Nice.
And I mean, you can't if you feel bad about that, you're a fool.
Yeah.
You're a fool. And besides, I didn't do them for the competition, really. They're mine. I collected them in New Zealand. They're mine. I have to look at them every day. They're going to be the way I want them to, whether the judge likes them or not.
Yeah.
And so I always take that attitude into there. It's always win-win for me.
Sounds like the perfect indie artist. One last question for you. What do you love about indie film?
Oh man, being here at Slamdance is like, it's kind of the summit of indie film, It doesn't
absolutely.
get any more indie than this. I think, as a lover of film, I don't know. I mean, I hang out with Ken. Ken loves the big budget Marvel films. That's kind of his thing, But yeah, I like
I am Groot.
I like I like those films that are, they're more of filmmakers are more passionate about it.
Yeah.
They realize that it's not all about the commercial success. It's more of an art form to me.
Yeah.
Of course, there's big budget artful
Sure.
films too, but yeah, and I've always kind of had that indie spirit in everything I've done. I'm gonna not work with the man typically.
He took the taxidermy world by storm. People look at Ken as the Elvis Presley of taxidermy, if you will.
Ken Walker of Alberta Beach, Canada, with the Wallabies.
Taxidermy is the most difficult art form that man has ever devised.
That's right, but you know what the funniest part is? It's all done by right-wingers who don't even believe in art and don't even know they're artists.
Ken was always interested in animals. He was just a little guy walking around with a jar full of bugs.
When I was in grade 3 or 4 or something, I wrote a story about Bigfoot. The thing that I find most frustrating about it is I know the creature is real. I am convinced, and I'm going to go one step further and build a model.
I got a call from the New York Times. The first thing they asked was, have you seen the Sasquatch yet? And could we interview Ken Walker? Hello, my right, Sam Gal.
This isn't an easy thing to do because what's it going to look like when it's done? Is it going to look like Snuffleupagus? Half the people don't believe this thing exists anyway, so they're going to think that I'm just being creepy. Some people are afraid of sharks. Some people are afraid of spiders. Upstanding, normal people are terrified of ridicule. Yes. I am not a surgeon, I am an artist. For this model to be successful is for somebody to be able to come over and say, man, I didn't think I'd see her again.
I think this gives a face to Sasquatch. It's the closest thing people have.
There might be somebody one day that walks up and sees that model and decides to give me what's in his freezer. That is my ultimate goal.
Thank you.